Living Dying Project is saying is that there is another dimension to human existence, the dimension of living spirit, the spiritual dimension that has been sought and cultivated throughout the ages. And if we can keep that alive, if we can keep that in the forefront during the confrontation with a life-threatening illness, then in fact this time can be transformed from just making the best of a bad situation to a time of intense living, growth, relating, healing.
We do provide one-on-one counseling to people with life-threatening illness in the latter stage of their life. And Dale met with parents, a man and woman, that had a child who was dying, a young baby. And a lot of the support went obviously to the mother and father in the loss and grief of the child and through that process with them.
No matter how close two people are, there will be a slight difference. And each day that difference became bigger and bigger, and we polarized. And without Dale, we would have been each other's enemies, and we would have been blaming each other without knowing what we were doing, without seeing what we were doing. And we needed someone to be able to do that, and someone that we both could. We trust a lot of people, but someone that we saw as not biased. And so he helped Patty and I get through it.
If we would have let ourselves get run down, or and which could have easily happened without, sort of people who've been there, who are more familiar with the dying process, letting us know this is okay, this is kind of what comes next, or your feelings are all right.
I was there to help them communicate, to deal with their emotions, to continue seeing the bigger picture. And because they were such remarkable people and had done their own practice, Mark was a Christian and Patty was a Buddhist, they rather naturally would most of the time see that there was a larger picture. It was not just this tragedy, but certainly at times they would get caught in, oh my God, what a tragedy. By the end, toward the end of the baby's life, toward the end of Bryce's life, they actually said to me that Bryce was the perfect baby for them. Not, he would have been perfect if he wouldn't have been brain damaged, but that just the way he was, that he and the situation leading up to that moment were perfect for them. And they accepted it in a way that I found deeply moving.
The change that I've noticed in clients, or people that we've had a close relationship with, is that they open as opposed to close down. A lot of people have an understanding of death as this person's life is ending and they're closing down and they're becoming less. That presence that death demands allows if people will open to that, allows them to open their life and become more fully human.
What it's been like for me is that I've discovered that being terminal can be a really precious experience, and a time that can be all for yourself, really, and that you can, that rather the symptoms can be difficult, and but it doesn't have to get oppressive and desperate.
When I first met Louis, he was going through a lot of transitions all at once. I remember that one of the things he was considering at the time was committing suicide in the near future. And I remember also that one of the first questions I asked him was how it would be different if he killed himself in a couple of weeks or if he waited a few months.
What Sarah did really is to be there at the times that it was really rough, and you would know you had someone there who didn't flinch, who had been there herself to a certain extent, and who could just be real with you. And I think for someone who's very ill, that's a very key point, because you can always tell when someone's sort of not really being real with you. You know, you just sense it. And that was very nurturing for me to have that experience with her.
The process of dying makes human beings wake up to the preciousness of life, and makes us be able to open ourselves a little bit more to what life means, and to embrace things that might seem difficult or painful. And I think that in that general sense, that's what most of the people in the project bring with them to all their work, is really an experience of the preciousness of life and death.
The thing that you can say, I think, the best to someone who's dying is to sit down on the edge of the bed and say, I'm willing to be here with you. I'm not leaving. I'm going to be here with my anger and your fear and my fear and your anger and everything that comes up, and I'm not leaving. I'm going to be here through this process.
And you have different options as to what you can do with this time. And in some way, in a way that's not really morbid, you can use this time as preparation for dying. In the sense that I'm trying to use my life, even though I don't have AIDS, as preparation for dying. So that when fears arise, when hope arises, when joy arises, is it possible to be with these things as they're coming up and not really getting lost in them?
I wanted to hear from other people how they dealt with death, and shifted it from being something that was taboo to talk about or look at or understand, or really see instead of stay away from, which in a way I feel like through my religious upbringing and friends and culture that had been something to really stay away from and fear and not talk about, and certainly not experience.
Suzanne came to a workshop that I gave 6 months ago. When she came to the workshop, she wasn't sick. She had no idea that she was going to be getting cancer soon. She came because she was interested in the topic and wanted to explore who she was. Within a few months of taking the workshop, she found out that she had cancer. And at that point came back to the project and said, I would like to be a client. Do you have a volunteer for me?
The value for me and what I feel generally is that because death is still a real taboo in our culture, that having at least one person who's unbiased, who doesn't have any desire for me or someone else to live or to die, but to be in integrity, is the greatest gift.
When people find out they have a life-threatening illness, what is sometimes even a terminal prognosis, it can go in one of two ways. Some people become very frightened, bitter, upset, push away life, want to die, don't want to relate to people around them, cling to people around them. And other people, sometimes with the support of the Living Dying Project, and certainly we attract a kind of client that is open to this kind of change. Some clients use the fact that they're dying as an inspiration to be fully alive now, and Suzanne is clearly one of them.
The one thing that I'm coming to that I feel is really important is joy and bliss, ecstasy, that any moment that it can be had or experienced, to snatch it up, to not wait until tomorrow or until I feel better or until I'm healthier, have more money, XYZ, until all my goals are met, then I can be happy. That to be happy and to share that with another human being in the moment doesn't have anything to do with all those goals and culture and the supposed tos of how I thought I was supposed to look before I could be happy.
Thomas Merton said, "Love and prayer are learned in the hour when prayer becomes impossible and the heart turns to stone." If we have a perfect moment in our lives, we're at the beach with someone we love, or we've just had this wonderful dinner, the heart opens spontaneously. Not so hard to have the heart open. But when in fact the heart turns to stone, when the doctor has said, I have very bad news for you, then how can we open the heart? And that is the work of the Living Dying Project.